So they did it. They called a Canadian election. Ugh, thank God, finally. But I don't know. I'm a little afraid because this Mark Carney dude comes in and he's kind of, I don't know. He's flipped the script a little. If you believe the polling, I don't know. I'm not sure if I believe the polling or not. But as it looks right now, it's essentially a close race. I'm going to read this article. It's BBC. So don't expect too much from the BBC, but here we go. They're going to talk about some Canadian politics for us. 5 things to look for in Canada's election. Canada's general election campaign is underway, a 36-day sprint taking place in unprecedented circumstances. Excuse me. If you don't know anything about Canadian politics, the way it has to work is they need a minimum of 6 weeks. So when they call the election, there has to be a minimum of 6 weeks before the election can actually take place. And what they're trying to do, what the Liberals are trying to do, is they're trying to capitalize on this newfound sort of momentum that they've gained, throwing in this hack, Mark Carney, just a fresh face for the Liberal Party. He's not a fresh face at all. He's just a goof. But they put him in there, and now they're getting a bump, and they're going to try and capitalize on that. Kind of the same thing that Trudeau did back when he called that snap election a few years back, and it's just because they knew that the polling was going in the wrong way, and they thought they'd just get ahead of it, call an election, then they would secure themselves another cycle. So I think they're doing the same thing here. Voters will consider which party should govern the country, just as the U.S., its neighbor and largest economic partner, launches a trade war, and President Donald Trump muses about making Canada the 51st U.S. state. Domestic issues like housing and immigration will still be important, of course, but for the first time in decades, Canadians will also be grappling with fundamental questions about the country's future when they head to the ballot box on April 28th. So here are the 5 things to watch as the campaign unfolds. So Canada is talking tough on Trump. This is stupid. So already, the idea that anybody's going to talk tough on Trump is just stupid to me anyway. It's just, they shouldn't be trying to talk tough with him. They should just try and work with him. But this seems to be the way they're all going about it. Canada and the U.S. share deeply integrated economies, a long-standing security partnership. It's a one-way security partnership. Let's be real. Like we're there, man. We'll watch a little for you. You know, when you guys you get a little shut eye. We'll watch. We'll ring the bell if anybody shows up. Long-standing security partnership and the longest undefended border in the world. It's undefended because it doesn't need to be defended. Let's be real. So when President Donald Trump says he wants to use economic force against America's neighbor, calls the border an artificially drawn line. If you've seen that, he just says somebody like took a ruler and drew a line. It's kind of funny. And imposes steep tariffs. It marks a profound shift in the relationship between the two allies. It is impossible to overstate the impact of the president's actions on Canadian politics, on Canadian psyche, on Canadian business, said Marcy Surks, Chief Strategy Officer at Public Affairs firm Compass Rose and a former policy director to ex-Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, a Liberal, of course. Dog shit. Trump's interventions have already reshaped politics in Canada, helping transform what seemed like a certain Conservative victory into a too-close-to-call battle with the Liberals. Yeah, so if you've been paying attention at all to our politics up here, the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre were up like 30 points or something. It was going to be a landslide. Basically, it was looking like it was going to be the first majority government we've had in a while, which if you understand Canadian politics, the way it works is you can win, but if you don't have a certain amount of seats in the House, you'd have a minority government. In other words, you have the majority of the seats, but not enough to be able to just make policy. So you need to work with another party. So usually what ends up happening is the Liberal Party in Canada will lock forces or lock arms with the NDPs because they're both left of center and they can get things done and they can work with each other. So they call it a coalition government. So we were looking like we were going to have a majority Conservative government where they wouldn't have to form any kind of coalition. But now, if you believe polls again, it looks like at best we're going to get a Conservative minority government, which would mean that they can't do much of anything without working with other parties. and they're not going to work with the Liberals because they never really do. And the NDP are dog shit, so they have to try and work with the Bloc Québécois, which is another party, or the Green Party, which in the Green Party never really have much in way of seats anyway. So it's kind of going to be, it would be an unproductive government for the next, 4 years essentially. Anyways, I digress. And on Sunday, as campaigning began, all the party leaders focused their launch messages heavily on the U.S. threats, of course. And that just seems to be the bullshit that is the forefront right now. It's like, it's the shiny penny. Oh, Trump's doing this stuff, so let's focus on that. I'm tough on Trump. How about somebody come in and say, look, listen, I'm going to fucking negotiate with the guy. I'm going to work with the guy, and I'm going to go in with the understanding that we're only a sovereign country because we're allowed to be a sovereign country. Let's be real. The U.S. wanted to take over Canada at any point in history. They could have done it. Okay, so we're sovereign because we're allowed to be sovereign. So why are we going in and flexing? We should just go in and say, hey, look, listen, how can we work together? We've been partners forever. Let's figure it out. Maybe we got to take a little bit more. And I don't know. It's just stupid to me when they start flexing. It's like the little guy flexing against the big guy. It just doesn't work. What the U.S. president says and does over the next few weeks will inevitably factor into the race. On April 2nd, for example, in just the second week of campaigning, the White House is expected to announce more global tariffs. He's already started to make his views on the election known, telling Fox News host Laura Ingraham on March 18th that conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is stupidly no friend of mine, and that it may be easier to deal actually with a liberal, which I don't know. Again, so now he says that, and I don't know if he's playing 3D chess at this point, because he could be saying that to try and make people think that he's going to work with the liberal, and the liberal is like, now they're going to sort of adopt Trumpism essentially in Canada. So maybe that's the angle, or he's just being straight, which I tend to believe that Trump's just being straight. He's saying he speaks off the cuff a lot. So I think he's actually being straight and saying, look, I can just work with a liberal easier because they're not going to be so ridiculously tough. So I don't know. But again, I thought initially when he did the tariff stuff, he was trying to oust Trudeau. And I still think he was doing that. But I don't, now if he just was ousting Trudeau so he could get another dog shit liberal in there, maybe that was the whole plan. I don't know. Anyways, I'm not going to keep going on this article, but here's the other things. So questions about experience. So they're obviously going to talk about how Carney has no political experience and Poilievre has. So that's going to look good for Poilievre. Poilievre has a clear plan. He has since day one, and Mark Carney doesn't really. It's going to be more liberal bullshit that we've been dealing with the last 10 years. So, I think that's edge goes to Poilievre on that. Sovereignty playing a big role, obviously, this whole bullshit with the 51st state and all that kind of stuff. Cost of living concerns, obviously with the looming, recession potentially happening, and, just inflation running wild. That's going to be one of the big things they talk about. And sadly, I think even though Poilievre would be, in my opinion, a lot stronger and a lot better on that, a lot of people might look at Carney having, being in banking and having been involved with the Bank of Canada and such, that he might be the clear choice for that. So I don't know. Anyway, so there's more dog shit in this article. It's BBC, so I'm not going to continue on with the article. But the point is, looks like we. Gizzo, what's up, buddy? Looks like we might have a very tight election, and sadly, if we do, we could end up getting another liberal government. If we get a liberal government that's another minority government, it doesn't matter. They have majority because they'll just work with the NDP, and we got 4 more years of fucking horseshit up here. So pray for us up here, because we could use it.